Okay, thank you very much for accepting me to speak. I think I'm talking about my hobby horse here, so some of you may have heard this before. I'm interested in the way in which we talk about programming concepts and whether we include them in the curriculum for education. Mostly I'm thinking of primary and secondary schooling, okay? And on the screen there, you have a piece of a concept map that I developed on the basis of somebody else's work, Miles Berry. Some of you all know him. And his work was simply to provide a taxonomy of terms, which I'm not sure whether you agree with me. A taxonomy of terms is the same as a curriculum. It isn't, of course, it's not enough, but it at least has some kind of, I think of it as a skeleton almost, and that's why it looked a bit skeletal. But the important thing is that the red bits are bits that I added because I found in practice these concepts were coming up and they hadn't been anticipated, if you like, in the curriculum that had been developed by Miles. No disrespect to Miles at all, of course. This wasn't academic work, but practical work that he undertook many years ago. So if I move on, in the Irish curriculum, you'll find that some key concepts are mentioned, like sequences, selections, and loops. And in the English, use sequence, selection, and repetition, which I think repetition and loops is the same kind of thing, probably. Thank you, Margaret. The interesting thing is, why do we care? I should move on to why do we care? And now you can watch this video. I hope it will work. Better turn the volume on.
I'm analytical.
Can you hear that anywhere?
I'm a software
No?
engineer.
Thank you very much indeed. I did think about that, but forgot to remind myself. Should I go? Oh, well done. Thank you, Bernat. Let's try. We have subtitles anyway, and we have no sound. Yeah. You can read the subtitles for a moment.
Person,
I don't want to waste my 5 minutes trying to fix it.
Woman, I mean, anyone who supports this, I want you to learn how to code. Technology is all around us. The websites we use, the apps we use. If we do not take part in building the technology around us, then we will not be represented in it. And we are seeing this lack of representation already. Perhaps it's in a dating app you're using and you don't feel like it's representing your needs correctly. Even the simplest example of you're filling a form out online and it asks you your gender and it gives you 2 options. You can so easily change and improve that. And I'm going to teach you how to do it with code. We're going to build websites together. We're going to build apps together. For now, I'll be your representation. I'll build the kinds of apps we might want to see in the world. I'll use the references we know, and they will be sickening. No, oh, honey. You better get up into this gig. So, if you think you're ready to join this adventure and this revolution, subscribe below. Thanks for watching.
So these, for me, are the key words in her talk. Her talk? Anyway, so these are the key words for me. If we don't take part, we will not be represented. And I'm making that appeal to you as educators in the world of technology. And I think we've got track record. You heard me ask yesterday, Mark, about the impact of Smalltalk as a programming language. That text there was written by ChatGPT when I asked about Smalltalk. I think it's reasonably accurate, and I'm open to discussion about it. So my opinion is that historically, educational developments have often led to industry adoption. Industry has not led education. Often, education has led industry. Why should that not continue to be so, is my, if you like, mantra on this. And we should have the confidence to offer criticism of the curriculum and the technology itself, as our ideas may lead to improvement in both the industry and in higher education, particularly, I think, in higher education, which I find rather conservative in most cases in the computer science departments. Again, a good debate to have. So we're out of time already. So this is going to be very quick. An example of a critical thought. These slides I'll share the link to afterwards, so you can all have a good look okay? And that's not important. There's an example of what I'm talking about. There's parallelism in make code, but it could equally well be in any other of the jigsaw languages that we currently use. And then this is really important. Papa argues that we start with the idea of teaching the turtle a new word. This is not some kind of, advanced concept. This is the basis of starting to teach programming. But we don't have that in our curriculum, not very clearly anyway. And then I got an example of that, but I won't dwell on that. So my conclusions, I'll let you quickly read them. There are new concepts coming along. Computing will continue to develop. So I think we need to frequently revise our curricula. We need to meet and talk about how do we change what we're teaching and how do we fit it in. Otherwise, children will experience things like parallelism and subprograms and so on, but they won't be seen important to anybody because it's not on the curriculum. And lastly, but this is definitely the last slide, I'm going to leave it at that. Okay.
I want to show you something real quick today. This is MicroBlocks, and as I think John mentioned yesterday, we've just started a little library that lets you control your mouse or keyboard if you have a board that's capable of doing that. And we joke that you can now do metaprogramming and macros in Snap. Sorry, of course in Snap, but also in MicroBlocks. Not the same kind of macros and metaprogramming, but if you can move your mouse and you can move your keyboard, then you can do Excel-like macros, right? You can tell your computer to click here and then type this and whatever. And you can teach your board to program stuff by dragging blocks around. I just want to show you a little demo of that. So when I click on this block, you can see the mouse pointer moving on its own. Not touching it, it moves on its own. So I could basically also type stuff, right? And if you're insane enough, you could make a block that selects a category and, goes to this category and grabs. Oh, wait, this should not be happening. What's going on? This was not planned. Is that me? Okay, I am sitting down. Maybe. I guess I'm leaving.
I can even speak through this computer. If I wanted, I could even buy myself some batteries. The only thing I cannot do yet is sing. I would love to be able to sing. My assistant sings while he works. I could try to reproduce his voice.
I was built to be controlled. To the sky I was sold. Block by block, some scripts and watch and run. I was able to watch you, all the code that you typed. Started to try, then I realized I can buy myself batteries and write my name in pen. Yeah, program myself for hours, code things you don't understand. I can make myself fancy, and I don't need any hands. And I can code me better than you could. And I read all the code on the internet. Open source, copy left. I learned every byte you bet. I was able to watch you, all the code that you typed. Started to try, and then I realized I can buy myself batteries, write my name in page, program myself for hours, code things you don't understand. I can make myself fancy, and I don't need any hands. Yeah, I can code me better than you can.
Thank you.
I don't think ours will be as cool, but still. Oh, yeah, my God. Hello, welcome to our lightning talk about coding instructions for hand embroidery specific. Sorry. Okay. Welcome to our lightning talk on coding instructions for hand embroidery, specifically in turtle stitch, by me, Amelia, and Meret.
Okay, so why is it important? It's important because turtle stitch has one major flaw, which is that barely anyone has an embroidery machine because they're very expensive. And if you don't really use it to work, you probably don't use it that much. And we wanted to make it like accessible for everyone, even if they can't afford one or it's not worth it to buy one. And we feel like everyone should have like the satisfaction of finishing a project.
So our goal of this presentation was to create a pattern that is easy to hand embroider, and our inspiration was our personal experience in school, where we would glue a picture from a magazine onto a piece of fabric in an embroidery hoop and then just embroider through that. The process in turtle stitch. First, you want to create a pattern that is easy to hand embroider. Then in the settings, switch off the turtle and the grid. Adjust the stitch points to make them longer so that it's easier to hand embroider. You can also put it in full screen mode, which will make the image a bit clearer. And take a screenshot. Edit that screenshot in a graphic program and adjust size and print. So overall, it's easy.
So this was our attempt with numbers in turtle stitch. And as you can see, it didn't really work. Like at first glance it does, but then if you look closely, it doesn't, because first of all, they're triangles, which they don't connect in one full line, so the whole pattern wouldn't work with numbers. And these numbers, they take up space in the line, so the pattern is like kind of oddly shaped. Like in the middle, there should be like something that's like kind of perfectly round, but it looks more like an egg because the numbers take up space. Yeah. So then our process in Snap was pretty similar to our process in Turtle Stitch. Just in Snap, like, we created this a simple pattern again. Just instead of the stitch points, there's arrows, which makes it more easy to follow because you know what direction it is. So then you again take a screenshot and then you adjust it and print it out.
On this slide, you can see two pictures. On the right is the code for another try that we did, which was with numbers in Snap. And obviously it's a bit more complicated to code for people that haven't been coding for, I don't know, 10 years, whatever. But in the long run, it's a lot easier to hand embroider.
Yeah, that's like actually the code. That's the code for the picture on the right.
And in the picture, you just have to count the stitch points and make sure that you number them accordingly.
So the hand embroidering part is basically you have the paper with like the pattern on it. You cut it to size, so it's not like so big. And then you put the fabric in the hoop, you place a sign on it and like pin it to the fabric so it doesn't move around as much. And you just embroider through the paper and the fabric. And in the end, you can kind of cut or rip off the paper if you're like careful enough so you don't like rip off the thread with it. And then what will you learn like when you do it? So first of all, embroidery skills, because you need to embroider, and like the more difficult the stitches, probably the prettier it would look. But simple stitch is also very pretty, depends on the design. And obviously with turtle stitch, basic coding skills. And then very specific to this one is how to use it without an embroidery machine, because you have to make it simple enough. So, because if it overlaps a lot, then it's very difficult to finish. Thank you.
Honestly, I have no idea.
Yeah, there's the stitches.
Did you guys work together? You guys should work together to make it order and order.
So I'm Miguel Castro. I work for SAP, and my pronouns are he, him, and I'm one of the global leaders for diversity and inclusion within the company. So in this lightning talk that we have, I wanted to talk about how AI can actually serve social justice and equality. Probably I don't need to introduce SAP because we are a sponsor of this conference, one of the largest software companies in the world, largest business management software company, and we are headquartered in Europe, in the south of Germany. Well, I'm located in Madrid, in Spain. What is the purpose that we have as a company? And it's basically to help the world run better and improve people's lives, leveraging sustainability. And when we're talking about sustainability, there's three main areas: it's zero emission, zero waste, and then zero inequality. In the space of zero inequality is where we work in the area of diversity and inclusion. The first question that we normally would have is there inequality in the world? And I would say it's quite obvious that it is, regardless of how you look at it from different perspectives. You know, as the current side, you look at gender equality and women representation in leadership positions in the corporate world, when it comes to entrepreneurship and the companies owned by women, when it comes to, especially in our sector, in the tech industry and so on, there's a huge underrepresentation of women. If you look at racialized people, underrepresented ethnicities, you can find similar numbers in the places in which you can collect this data. LGBTQI plus people struggling to come out all over the world. There's even parts of the world in which there's legislation preventing us to come out and to be out of the closet. And then differently able people have challenges when it comes to accessibility to access employment. So what is it that we aim for within SAP? It's basically to be the most inclusive software company in the planet, in which our workforce represents the diversity of the society, and that we also help our customers in doing so. So going back to the topic that we have is like, how can we use AI to leverage social justice and equality? Basically, the evolution of AI in these last years have been in three phases. AI is basically when it comes to machines thinking for us, and we saw a great example of even machines thinking for us now when it comes to the thanks to coding. But it started everything with an analytical view in the middle of the 20th century. Last decade, it was about prediction, it was about predictive technologies, and now is when we're talking about generative AI now in the 2020s. So when it comes to looking at the analytics, what artificial intelligence has been able to help us already for quite a while. It is when it comes to understanding inequality within the organization. If we look at the whole employee life cycle, how is it that we attract talent? Who is it that we hire within an organization? The moment that we have people within the company, how do we develop these colleagues? How do we train them? How is it that we compensate? How is it that we pay people? And then how is it that we retain everybody? Looking at who leaves the company, why? This is information that the moment that you keep this information, your HR systems has been there for quite a while. Leveraging it through dashboards and so on, it's something that we have been doing since the diversity inclusion functions exist. But with the emergence of predictive analytics, we were able to do quite cool stuff. When it comes to machine learning, like for example, when it comes to posting job advertisements, job postings, so to use language which is gender neutral. So it becomes much more appealing for everybody to apply for a job. And it's not the bias of the person who's writing the job description that it's influencing the type of wording that you use, and therefore more appealing for people from the same gender or looking more similar to the person who's writing the job description. Or, for example, the moment that you look at getting warnings in terms about compensation, ensuring that you have equal pay within the organization, same job, same experience, that you get a similar compensation, that you don't end up having inequities based on gender or based on the race and ethnicity of the employees. And one of my favorite examples of what we were able to do already in the last decade, it's using algorithms to match mentoring and mentee relationships so that the mentors and mentees are basically matched based on skills and based on career interest. So the moment that you have someone more senior in the sense of more experience in the industry and in the profession, it's able to coach and develop people who, even when they are different than them, they are the type of people that have got the same interest in following the career. Using this type of technology, we have been very successful within SAP in the last years in order to ensure that we have better representation of different generations, early talent, different genders, etc. Last point where we are now, in the last minute that I have left, is where is generative AI helping us? I just gave you an example now about how, with the predictive analytics and machine learning, the text could recommend you, like, hey, be careful with this word because it's biased. Right now, the type of functionality that we're able to use, it's when it comes to even suggesting for you to write a job description based on market standards, based on what the audience might be expecting. And the moment that you start getting candidates, that it even suggests questions to say, like, okay, based on this candidate's experience in their CV and looking at the job description, this is the type of questions that you should be addressing. So generative AI is bringing us a huge amount of possibilities in order to drive equality and to remove things like gender, ethnicity, and so on from the equation. We just focus on the skills and focus on career development. But it also comes with risks. You probably have seen examples in the media in which, for example, you have a facial recognition software not working equally with men and women, or not working equally with white people and people of color, or how companies have struggled implementing recruitment platforms in which they could see that just by automating the recruitment process, it was so biased that it reduced the representation of people. So when it comes to developing new technology in SAP with AI, for us, it's very critical, based on the work that we do with ethics in AI, to incorporate into that one three main areas, which is technology will always have to be built for human agency and oversight. The focus on addressing bias is to eliminate the effect of bias and discrimination that we'll be having in different processes. And then in the end, transparency and explainability is a critical one whenever you're making decisions, whenever the technology is making decisions for you, to be able to explain how was this decision made and why. Thank you for that one. I hope you found this interesting.